Maze, this is a science-based show, evidence-based show. And for the record, you have no evidence that I linked Stranger Things and Star Wars at all with Jeff and yourself. So back off, dude.
Whoa.
Science is the name of the game today. Because there's been an internet thing where we are simultaneously dismissing science and then creating our own science to explain things. And it always tickles me. Like, when do we believe science? When is it? Is it when a kook comes around and says, I have the answer? That's what we believe science?
Well, I mean, a long time ago, all scientists were regarded as those kooks who came around and waved their finger in the air and said, I have a theory. I discovered this thing. Because science, it started more akin to witchcraft and wizardry, you might say, than actual learned scholars at universities reading leather-bound books.
Jeff, are you ready to leave yet? Are you?
This is like the craziest intro to like call me a kook and then have me on. Like I've just kind of been waiting for and now we'll turn to our resident kook. You know what I mean? So wasn't sure where it was going in terms of like the build.
I don't either. For the record, I don't know where this was going, but we're here joined by Jeff Stotts of InStreetClothes.com. I think he's got a tattoo, like you can't see it now, but he's got one of these commemorative tattoos, a patch, if you will, like LeBron James, 23 times he's been onto the show. Truth teller, Jeff Stotts. Thanks for joining us. Maze, what kind of hat are you wearing right now?
This is a San Francisco 49ers cap.
And has it split into pieces because you're too close to some sort of practice facility?
Well, the snapback in the back is pretty weak. So it could go at any time, but right now it's holding strong, actually.
Well, we had to bring on Jeff because I feel like this might be it's transcended all of the NBA. It's like now this week there's this conspiracy theory that the 49ers, after George Kittle had his Achilles tear, even before that, there was this theory going around. Maze, can you enlighten me on the exact theory that has been proposed? Because as a 49ers fan, I'm guessing you've gone through a roller coaster of emotions trying to decipher this and whether you believe it or not.
Well, what I love about this is that when I saw it, I thought, okay, this is going to be a niche Bay Area story that might come up amongst fellow 49ers fans as we head into a playoff game against the Eagles and we're severely injured. Lo and behold, Peter Cowan, Sunlight is Life is his company, by the way, at living_energy on Twitter, makes this post with a map of Levi Stadium, the practice facility, and, of course, circled in red, the electrical substation located directly next to the practice facility. We're up to 21.7 million views on this tweet.
Oh, wow.
This thing has exploded. This is one of the biggest, most referred to on almost every podcast talking about the playoffs this weekend. Somebody brought up this post and this conspiracy theory, which alleges, this is the first line, low-frequency electromagnetic fields can degrade collagen, weaken tendons, and cause soft tissue damage at levels regulators call safe.
Okay. Is there any evidence? I don't know. I guess that's why we have Jeff here. Is this unfounded? This claim here?
So when this thing first surfaced, I got sent this from multiple people saying, "Hey, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think?" I'm like, guys, this is a little bit above my pay grade, but I did kind of start looking into it a little bit, looking through some of the different research stuff out there. And the funny thing is some of the EMFs that they're talking about, the waveforms and stuff like that, are actually being researched for treatment for wounds and soft tissue injuries. So it's low grades pulse or higher grade impulse versus constant low. And so you kind of get this back and forth of, all right, are these two ideas conflicting? Is it one because it's a constant at a low waveform, or it's supposed to be high in pulse and tissue regeneration and stuff like that. So already I was like, oh man, here we go. I'm opening this can of worms, and I'm getting two conflicting ideas. I reached out to a couple different people that have worked in the NFL, that have, been around things like that. They kind of just all dismissed it as, hey, this is a conspiracy theory kind of thing. But the more and more I read, I do think it's one of those situations where, if, like any good conspiracy theory, if you kind of squint a little bit, maybe you can start to kind of convince yourself, maybe this does make some sense. But I think this is one of those things where we're looking for patterns that maybe not necessarily there. More of a like correlation causation kind of thing. And the easiest answer is, well, actually football is a really violent sport, and injuries occur very, very frequently in football. And the Niners are just like any other team in terms of injuries. I don't track them as well as I do in the NBA and the NFL, but I think we're looking for zebras when it's actually horses kind of thing.
Wow. You know what reminds me of, Jeff, the scene in The Jerk, where he's working at the station and there's a sniper who picked his name out of a phone book and is now shooting at him. And as like the second and third bullet hits and it hits the cans and the oil is spilling, Steve Martin stares at the cans and stares at the sniper and he says, "He hates these cans. Everyone stay away from the cans." Like no concept. No, he's shooting at you, right? So it's the same thing. It's like, yeah, like these football players are having all these gruesome football injuries. It's like, it's the electric waves from the nuclear plant down the street or whatever. I have to bring in a quote from Dr. Sitterer here, because Peter Cowan tweeted out his conspiracy, and he says, "They're waving me off as a conspiracy theorist. I don't give a fuck. IDJF. I speak the truth as I see it. My hypothesis came from real clinical experience with MCAS/EDS clients. I'm looking for an outlet with reach and curiosity to let me dig into it. Please, RT. I don't know the media world very well, but someone along the lines of Joe Rogan, Huberman Lab, or Luke Story, or anyone cut from that cloth." And so Dr. Sitter says, quote, "Someone along the lines of Joe Rogan, have to appreciate the confidence to go straight for the king of podcasts as an outlet to spread this theory. How do you equate the pro-tendon healing evidence of pulse EMF with the lack of any credible peer-reviewed evidence for negative effects of spending no more than probably 10% of your year in the vicinity of a power station? You're asking people to agree with a theory that has zero quantifiable evidence. We can't prove it wrong or right." And this brings me back to the basis for all this shit. It's like, people think research is you sitting on YouTube.
It's in our intro.
Or reading an article. And it's like, they don't understand clinical research is like thousands and thousands of trials and tests, and you got to write, and it's got to get published in certain journal. And then like, it's all the levels of complexity behind having a scientific theory be not even proven, just be accepted as a theory, are so vast and so complicated that the idea that someone said, as I see it, is kind of hilarious.
I mean, so it sounds like we need to spend hours and hours and have thousands of people peer review this to really find out what's going on here. It sounds like, as everyone has acknowledged, we don't know either way. But we do know that Peter Cowan went down to the practice facility with a Gauss meter and showed off Gauss meter readings. That's fact.
I don't know what does that prove? So that there's just there's a lot of Gauss there.
Lots of Gauss.
We metered a lot of Gauss.
It's very Gaussy around their practice facility.
Can we just dig into this 10% thing that Dr. Brian Sitterer, who's been on this program and friend of Jeff Stotts and co-pilot on a lot of this stuff. 10%. So yeah, the theory is that their practice facility is close by, but I guess how are there concrete walls involved? Like, are there walls that these waves can penetrate through in the practice facility? Like, what is the science of these low frequency EMFs?
I mean, I think, and that's what Brian's trying to say is, what is the level of exposure, right? It's clearly not going to be consistent. It's not like you're got a beam aimed at each one of these guys as they move. How often are they at the practice facility? Where are they in the practice facility? Where is the field in regards to what's going on? And from my understanding, the Gauss meters readings were still within acceptable quantities in terms of they were elevated, yes, but still within acceptable quantities according to people that make those regulations in play.
Maze, you're not satisfied. You think this is until we have a power station next to every football stadium and practice facility. You're not going to be satisfied with the answers you're hearing.
Well, clearly we need a control. Okay, we can't just have one team in the league that practices next to an electrical substation for some god awful city planning reason.
By the way,
we need to put an electrical substation next to every team's practice facility and see if that evens the playing field.
I think here's the crazy part. I think the Cardinals aren't too far away from an electrical substation.
Aren't too far or directly next to? I mean,
they're not directly next to, but they're also not. It's not like miles and miles away. It's fairly close. For what it's worth.
Is the inside of that Niners hat lined with foil? I mean, that's my question. Is that really what we're trying to do?
I took it a step further, Jeff. I went under the dermis. We're going above the skull, under the skin on my scalp. Insulated aluminum foil. But all right, you guys don't want to talk about my cockamamie, my theories, my wild, unproven, unpeer-reviewed theories. Let's dig into something that Amin and Jeff, you guys know a little bit more about, right? Which is training staffs, right? Quality training staffs. Phoenix Suns known for their incredible training staff that was envied by the rest of the league. If the NFL has a team that is disproportionately injured, normally you would turn to the training staff, correct?
A lot of times, yeah, absolutely.
So if the 49ers training staff has not come under fire for their disproportionately injured team, if their training staff has been replaced and we have a new training staff and the injuries persist, how do you address that as an organization? I mean,
well, then I start looking at the facility itself, not where we're located, but like the type of turf we're using, the general construction of what we're dealing with, along with our scheduling. How does that differ / similar with everyone else's scheduling? I mean, there's a bunch of things I would check off before I get to, is the power plant across the street shooting lasers into my best player's tendons?
Well, maybe our man Peter Cowan has checked all those things off.
Right.
Yeah,
sure.
He seems like a guy who's done thorough and extensive research. I want to shift from this.
Oh,
actually, no. Before I shift from this, I forgot to give you the third eye open on this, because you called it, Maze. Bunch of players start getting hurt for a team. Who's usually the first culprit that everyone points the finger at?
training staff.
Training staff, right? So who would benefit from having a massive conspiracy that shifts blame away from the training staff?
Do we need to see who the investors in Sunlight is Life are?
There you go. Because I'm gonna tell you right now,
the money.
I saw this in real time happen this week on the Levitard show, where Mike Ryan said there's an internet theory that's completely unfounded that the Indiana Hoosiers are somehow stealing signals or something like that, and that's why I think they've intercepted the first or second pass of a team 4 times this season, which is an absurd rate, right? And the internet rumor is so big he had to dismiss it on the internet, and then the defense coordinator for Indiana responded to him, and then he responded back, right? And I was like, wow. And then I dug into it, and the originator of said internet rumor seems to be Mike Ryan.
Yeah.
He created it, and then he dismissed it and set this whole thing off. So I'm thinking maybe, just maybe, that the cause and the effect come from the same individuals. But I want to talk about something else. I don't want to do football Illuminati today. I want to do basketball Illuminati with Jeff Stotts about something he knows very well about, which is NBA injuries. You have the most extensive injury database known to man, which is, that's got to feel pretty cool, right? Like to know, no, you are the guy. 8 billion people on Earth.
Yeah, when I started building this, I knew I wanted to be the NBA injury guy, but I didn't think I would be sitting here with you guys talking about injuries and be confident enough to talk about the extent of which I have and the database and things. I guess just continually devolve. I looked at it this morning and I have I think it was 33,000 entries over. I've crossed and I'm getting close to having that. I mean, and it's just like to think that I've logged each one of those and the amount of time that's gone into the database is just, it's taken me places I've never thought when I kind of sat down and essentially built a spreadsheet to start and then, start using it to do exactly what I like to do. And that's educate and figure stuff out and talk injuries with you guys. It's pretty cool from a standpoint of where it's taken me and what I've been able to do with it for sure.
So with that backdrop, I feel like you are more uniquely equipped to answer this question than any person literally on the face of the earth. Is Anthony Davis the most varied injured human being to ever play in the NBA? Not most injured, but most various injuries causing him to miss time.
He's up there. I'd have to go look through the exact. Kobe was a guy I always come back to that had a ton of varying injuries, fingers, shoulders, his Achilles, obviously. He's had a lot of stuff that was kind of not remembered in a lot of ways, because obviously we remember the Achilles and things like that, and the rotator cuff tear that kind of ended, but he played through a lot, and I started to look through, like a guy like Embiid has had a lot of injuries, missed a lot of time, but it's all been kind of foot, a lot of foot stuff. But AD has got to be up there in terms of variety for sure, because it's been, I put something out there when he suffered his groin strain that it was like his 13th groin related injury in his career, and like that number kind of
who among us
was eye popping to a lot of people. And then when he hurt his hand recently, I was like, surely there's not and sure enough, he had like 5 or 6 left hand injuries, and including
he's doing cycles now. Is that what you're telling me?
It's crazy. And like the frustrating thing with AD is, yes, he has this variety, and his numbers, the number of injuries and events that I've recorded for him are second only to LeBron. So, and that makes sense from a standpoint of that guy's played for 23 years, according to the patch, right? So
wait, can you say that again? Can you say that one more time? So AD
He's
is the second most number of injuries I've recorded behind only LeBron.
Wow.
Despite having played literally half the number of years that LeBron has played in the league.
So yeah, absolutely. And so one of the things that I try to make people understand with my database, so any player that has played from 05, 06 to yesterday
is going to have a disproportionate,
something in my database. Mm-hmm. Now, what I did do is for every guy that is in the database, I went ahead and did log their career. So a guy like Kobe or LeBron who played before the switch, and that's why I picked that 05, 06. That was when we switched to the day-to-day inactive list. And before that, it was you would have rookies end up on the inactive list for ankle sprains, and they'd be out 5 games, and you can't get a good gauge of how long an injury actually kept someone out. But every time I did log a player, I logged their career to have a full, complete snapshot of that player. So I've got injuries for Kobe that are not included in the data set for the data, but I do have them marked for Kobe. Same with LeBron. His career wasn't quite as long before that shift, but he played in both eras of injury reporting. AD has only played in one. So I went back and looked for you guys just because I thought it'd be fun to kind of talk about. LeBron's number 1, Anthony Davis is number 2. Just looking at players from 05, 06, just those injuries, who's number 3? Who do you think?
Ooh, 05, 06.
Chris Paul.
Now.
Chris Paul is not. He's on number.
He was
20.
Very durable. Yeah. So
number of injuries. This is not time lost. So.
Yeah. So okay. Number of injuries. I'm gonna go with.
It's not
Dwayne
Embiid.
Wade.
No, wait. Embiid is 5.
Oh,
Dwayne Wade.
Dwayne Wade. So in Wade, I have 149 recorded events for Wade in his career.
Got up 150.
And that was just 0506. You include before
Right.
that, it's up to 164.
LeBron
Now,
is at what? What are the numbers?
207 for LeBron, and that's everything career wise.
Right.
Is 207 since 0506. It goes down to 193,
And then AD is
at 197, including this season.
If you had like an operation style diagram of every appendage and body part of these injuries, you think Anthony Davis would hit the most proportion of all those different areas of the body?
It always comes back to him and Kobe. Like I really do. And what's funny, the reason I say Kobe so confidently is I remember when Kobe was getting ready to retire, I did a thing with Baxter Holmes, who he wanted to know. He's like, "Hey, here are the number of injuries we have for Kobe. What do you think?" And I was like, it was something along those lines. There was another graphic that used me specifically, and it was significantly like they had, I think, something like 23 or 25 injuries, something like that. And I was like, guys, I have like 152.
Yeah.
And again, part of the
scoff in your general direction. Yeah.
Some of that is because people don't count an injury when it didn't result in lost time. So, right. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen, right? Like one of the things I always reference is like nobody talks about it, but LeBron had a benign tumor removed from his jaw during his playing career. And like, that's just something that doesn't go because it didn't result in any missed time. It is something that is worth noting, you know what I mean? And in his injury profile. So, and then I do things like look at, proportionally number of events compared to the games lost. So, a guy like LeBron, his games lost per injury event is 0.87. Anthony Davis is 1.2, which is actually less than, some of the other guys out there that we don't necessarily like. Kevin Love is 2.4 games lost per injury. Giannis is in the top 5 for number of injuries I've recorded, but he's at 0.7 games lost. So he's able to play through a lot of those stuff. He has versus a guy like D Rose, who was at 4.1, Embiid's at 3.1. You know what I mean? So these guys not only do they suffer injuries, but then they missed a lot of time in regards to those injuries.
Which is part of the issue when the NBA came out a few weeks ago saying, Adam Silver said, hey, we're seeing the number of injuries actually decrease compared to previous seasons. And my point was, well, if they're all missing multiple weeks, that's a problem. It's hard to get injured again if you're sidelined. So in some ways, we would expect to see the number of injuries go down if the guys are each missing a month, So what I'm seeing in my data is stars are missing more games than they ever have. We're down to two of the 45 all-stars in the last 3 years. If you've been named to an all-star in the last 3 years, you're considered a star by the NBA's player participation policy. There's only 2 players left that have not missed a game. Do you guys know who those 2 players are?
Oof, that's a great question. 2 players who have not missed a game who are all-stars in the last 3 years.
Any of the last 3 years. Yep.
Oh, man, every name I think of, I'm like, no, I remember him missing. Jalen Brunson would have been my first guess. Harden's missed games.
No, he's missed games
this year.
I will say that these 2 players are not like perennial all-star guys, so you probably aren't coming front of mind on whether they're
Kyle
a star
Lowry.
or not. No, in the previous 3 years. So like, so Kyle Lowry, which was great, by the way, that when he got to play in Toronto was awesome. But the 2 guys who have been named to at least one all-star in the previous 3 seasons who have not missed a game yet this season, one is Julius Randle.
Yes.
And the other is the Sacramento King.
DeMar DeRozan?
DeMar DeRozan.
Wow.
So those are the 2.
2 underrated medical staffs, by the way. Sacramento, Minnesota do a great job of keeping their guys healthy. They've historically been good staffs.
So Jokic got, the knee injury from the hyperextension. We got Scotty Barnes, who just recently missed a game. Pascal Siakam has missed a game. Karl Anthony Towns, etc. There's a couple guys who have like 1 or 2 missed games, but the chance of a guy finishing this season, a star player, with 82 games played is just about nil because we've got only 2 and we're at the halfway point in the season, which brings me to my next thing. Jeff, what is the state of injuries in the NBA at the halfway point of the season?
Well, we're getting really close to that halfway mark. I think the Mavs played their 40th game last night, so they're about to hit that halfway marker where we can start looking at, comparing seasons and things like that. Looking at, you guys know I put out a weekly kind of breakdown of the previous week and games lost and things like that. We are about 1 week ahead games worth, so about 250-ish games ahead of last year's pace, which we know was a record-breaking pace for terms of total games lost to injury. So we just finished the 12th week of the NBA. Again, I like to look at it in 20 game blocks because it's consistent. Right now we have like a team like Dallas who's played 40, and I think Houston's only played like 34 games, maybe 33 games, somewhere along there. So there's this wide variety of actual games played, but they are up in terms of just total games lost. Not as this massive spike that I kind of feared when we started having all those calf and those soleus strains reported, but we often see that. We see this big spike in the first quarter as guys are coming out of the offseason, coming out of preseason. Then we normalize and level a little bit. We see kind of a big jump in like illness-related injuries, which we're seeing right now with cold and flu season happening. We see a little bit of a dip and then another big jump as the season ends. And that's where you get the guys that are, okay, we're out of the playoff race. We're going to shut this guy down. We start to see maybe some of those guys that were sidelined at the beginning of the year, like a Van Vliet or a Tatum potentially coming back, those kinds of things. So there is this give and take, but right now we're ahead of pace. It's not drastic, but it is enough that it's, at least noteworthy and worth looking into in terms of, is there something else we're missing here that's contributing to this factor? And I would start with the fact that there have been so many guys coming into the year with significant injuries and that have kept them out. The Lillards, the Tatums, the Halliburtons.
I'm going to give you on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, even when you exclude those, though.
Yeah, you take those three guys out, still slightly ahead. And we have those guys every year. We tend to have a guy coming off of an ACL or something every year that is going to miss the first quarter to the first half of the season. So, again, like slightly at a pace, interested to see where it goes. Really interested to see what those halfway numbers are.
I'm really curious, I guess, do you track – this is how it should be, but how you track – only players who have been injured since, say, the first day of camp. So, meaning, if Grant Williams and Mo Wagner just came back, I don't feel like their missed games should count against this season because they came in. Same thing with Lillard, Halliburton, Tatum. I feel like if we're talking about our injuries up, we're talking about guys who got injured during the 25-26 season. And I would start it, I guess. Maybe camp isn't fair. Maybe I should start it from the off season. But the idea that someone is coming in, grandfathered in with an existing injury, I think that might skew the numbers as far as how we're trying to think about, are things worse now than they ever been?
Yeah, and I do keep up with that. That's one of the things I can look at. I haven't yet from a standpoint of, again, we kind of always dismiss is maybe a strong word, but do say that's always kind of baked into the numbers anyway. We have 3 or 4 guys coming in. The ones that really throw it off is the guys that suffer an injury, season-ending game 1. Julius Randle, who we talked about, his first rookie season, he played 1 game, broke his leg, and was out for the year. Jeremy Lin a couple years back tore his patellar tendon, I think. Hayward, obviously the big infamous Hayward ankle. Yeah.
We haven't really had that this year, actually, now that I think about it. We haven't really had
a ton of knock on wood, new season-ending injuries. And like last year, we had the Achilles injuries in Indiana where Wiseman and Isaiah Jackson tore theirs pretty early on as well. So, I'm trying to think of season enders that we've had so far.
Have we, can you rank for me the likelihood in your mind of guys, big names, have the ability to return this season, the chances that we see them at the end of this year? I'm going to start with DeJounte Murray, tore his Achilles January 31st of last year. I haven't heard anything, but it seems like he should be coming back. It's been a calendar year almost since he came back. There's Jason Tatum, Damian Lillard, Tyrese Halliburton, and what was the 5th one I wanted to hit here?
Kyrie?
Yeah, Kyrie.
Yeah.
Who do you think gets to the floor soonest, or do you think any of them will? track to play this year?
So probably I would say Tatum has the most likely of that group to come back. All the reports seem to be super positive. Boston is excelling and that they're playing for something. So they have an opportunity to bring him back in a very unique fashion. I think we've heard Lillard say he's sitting out this season. So I think he's obviously off the board. I think Van Vliet would I maybe put number 2 on there. It's a little bit different than an Achilles. It's an ACL. I think that team is likely to be playing later into the season for something. So the likelihood of him coming back is probably pretty high. I did a thing with Tim McMahon. We looked at, fastest recovering ACLs and things like that. And if Van Vliet came back, he would be on the quicker end, but not one of the fastest. Very comparable to Danny Green, who suffered an ACL tear the final game of the season and returned to play. It was his last game with the Sixers, and then he came back the following season. I think it was like 260 games or days, something like that. I don't think we see Halliburton this year simply because they're not going to run the risk of doing anything. And then Kyrie's kind of right there in the middle because it's really interesting to see what Dallas is going to do. There seems to be positive reports that he's going to play, but what is in the best interest of the franchise and his health? Does it make more sense to just, hey, let's give you some additional time and, turn our focus to next year? Again, I don't know what they're going to do with AD if the hand injury completely changes all their plans and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Going back to AD, it's a hand injury, and the reporting is if they go non-surgical, it's about 6 weeks of recovery. If they go surgical, it's months. I hadn't seen any specifics as to what that injury is. If you don't know, or if you don't know, can you? I don't want to say guess, but like given the parameters of that recovery, what does it sound like? What kind of injury does it sound like it could be?
So they've said it's a ligament, that he tore a ligament in his hand. So we know it's a ligament. We don't know what finger. We don't know to what extent, and that really it is his offhand, which is good from a standpoint of, he could do a little bit more. The difference for me is it hand, which is like right here, right, or fingers. So not the metacarpals, but into here. If it's a ligament here, probably 6 weeks. If it's one of these where it's really affecting his mobility, maybe it's a little bit more extensive. And that I know they were going to visit a hand specialist and have an update some point later this week. So hopefully that's encouraging. At least we get some more details. I don't even know what part of the hand it is. They've just been saying hand. I've seen them say it's hand, and then it's listed as finger. So it's a little bit of, and like watching the play, I saw some reports. Well, does he get stuck in the jersey? Which there is a thing called jersey finger, and that's like a tendon tear or a mallet finger. But I don't even really see that in the replay. Like I looked from a different. I thought he potentially broke his metacarpal the way he kind of got it sandwiched in between himself and Markkanen. And then when they said, okay, it's ligament, my guess is it's probably a ligament rupture or tear, and it just depends on what they opt to do and in terms of stability in the hand and mobility as well.
Right. I ruptured my ulnar collateral ligament years ago, like maybe now it's coming up like 7 or 8 years ago. But the surgery, the recovery on the surgery wasn't months though. I mean, it was months for me because I don't have a team of people.
AD has been living near a power station. So
yeah, exactly. But I remember Drew Brees had the same injury at the same time, and he was playing like maybe 3 or 4 weeks later.
And that's where I looked at nondescript hand injuries that were ligament tears that resulted in surgery. And I think it was 6 weeks is kind of where, and like, if you want to stretch that to 8 weeks, can you actually say, oh, well, that's 2 months. Okay. Maybe we're talking about, that's where they're using months in there. And so it's the timing of it was obviously terrible completely for the Mavs and unlucky. It's not like, it's a little bit different than those abdominal and calf injuries that we've seen that have been so problematic for AD. It was just, he was playing defense and his hand got trapped between, that's not something that should be held on the Mavs medical staff or, something AD isn't doing. It's just this one of those freak injuries. And that's where I think we'll get a lot of frustration with AD is he does have kind of a little bit of both, right? He's got the guy I think of a lot is in baseball is Troy Tulowitzki of the Colorado Rockies. He had a bunch of soft tissue injuries and then he also like broke a bat and it like splintered into his hand and he missed a lot of time. So it's like there's this balance of injury prone, which I hate that term, and then also just unlucky.
That's why I go back to the whole Anthony Davis thing is that for every one of these things, like the groin, like the calf or whatever, I'm like, yeah, there's a bunch of these injuries. He seems to me to have had a lot of injuries that are like, there's nothing you could do, man. That's just bad luck. You get hit in the face, you got poked in the eye. Or
we got this with Gordon Hayward, right? Where it was like he was deemed injury prone, but a lot of them were just like freak hand or finger injuries. It's hard to parse the two.
Yeah, and like looking through his stuff, he's got stress reactions in his ankle and foot. That is, you're a big man. Like you have, we see that a lot in our bigs, and then he's got things that you can't attribute to, like shoulder labrum tears or finger injuries, concussions, things like that. You're going through it all, and it's the retina issue. It's all just it's this weird back and forth with him. And at the end of the day, it's just the accumulation of it all. It's the cumulative effect that people remember with him, not necessarily one or two things.
But how would you contrast it with someone like Giannis, who's on your spreadsheet quite a bit himself, but the games lost are so low?
It really comes, part of it is physique, right? Like literally the body type, right? Like even those extra inches for AD, and he's just a bulkier, bigger guy, and style of play. Some people dismiss style of play, and I don't, right? Like I think that's a big part of, I think that's actually what's contributing to a lot of our injuries is the style of play of the game. But then you're talking about the style of play of the individual, where they're playing. And this is the debate that we've had a long time with Anthony Davis is power forward versus center. Are you going to be in the paint, or you're going to be open to coming down on someone's foot or an elbow to the face, or are you going to be a little bit more on the perimeter? And I think that's why he prefers not playing center, is because you're not banging with those bigger bodies. You're pulled out a little bit. There's more space to operate for those inadvertent injuries to occur.
So we're going to have an illumination of Crusaders against hyperextension as an injury. So Jeff, can you explain why hyperextension, the hyperextended knee, when Nikola Jokic is mentioned by the official Denver Nuggets feed as suffering an hyperextension injury to his knee? You have been banging this drum for a very long time. I have tweets from you since like 2011 on this, is that hyperextension is not actually an injury, or it's a description of the action. So with Giannis having this, Wemby having this, and now Jokic having this, can you explain why this is such a not a bone to pick, but something that grinds your gears, Jeff?
So this is, we talk about the database and doing that. Like, what do you do with that? Like where does that injury? That's what I want to know, because I want to be able to put that injury to be able to compare it to something else. And all we're doing is telling about. So hyperextension is simply a description, like you said, of the mechanism of injury. Every major joint, especially our hinge joints, like our elbow and our knee, they move, right? And if the joint angle gets smaller, it's flexion, and if it gets bigger, it's extension. So you can see my broken pinky there, by the way. Can't fully extend.
Ronnie Lott over here. Yeah,
I got my Sean Marion finger.
Playing through it.
Exactly. Typing through it. So for Jokic, his knee was hyperextended. The foot got caught, it hyperextended, but a lot happened once that occurred. Is it a soft tissue structure? Did his ACL tear? Did his meniscus get pinched when that hyperextension occurs? Because that's what happens. Now the good news is with Jokic, we didn't see any twisting, which tends to attribute to more of the ACL, the MCL kind of thing. What we likely had with him is what we call kissing contusions, where the bones hyperextend and they kind of knock into one another, and those two bones hit each other and bruce each themselves, right? So
you say a kissing contusion?
They call them kissing contusions, right? So the bones kind of kiss and lead to a. If it's in the foot, sometimes they call it like a nutcracker contusion, like where kind of the same thing.
Come on, man.
Exactly. So you were getting a good description. Now we've heard they're actually listing it now as a bone contusion in Jokic's knee. So we know that that's what it is. Same happened with his teammate Cam Johnson. I believe they said it was a hyperextension. And I think part of it is the need to say something once an injury has occurred, like this is what has happened. And yes, the knee was hyperextended. but it doesn't tell us what tissues were involved. And again,
right. If I stub my toe, that's not an injury. That's just how you hurt your toe. So what is the actual injury? Yeah.
Correct. And that's where I get like frustrated, is because people turn to me and they're like, hey, what do you think? How long do you think he's going to be out? And I'm like, well, we can look at nondescript hyperextension injuries, or we can remove this mechanism of injury and just focus on what the actual diagnosis was. And that's really where I get frustrated. Cause then now I can be more accurate. I can actually tell you, oh, hey, knee bone contusions, depending on, the location, if we get that. And that's the crazy thing, is we get, some teams will tell you the exact muscle involved and the extent, and other teams will be like foot soreness.
Lower extremity.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
So what do you attribute that to, Jeff? Do you think that's like a team policy that they don't want to disclose injury stuff, or do you think it's the individual giving the information to whoever is going to report it on social media?
I think it's probably a little bit of both somewhere in there. I think if the player doesn't want it, they can try to be as vague as possible. Hey, please keep this vague. Yeah. If they don't really care, they're not like there have been plenty of examples. Like I think DeMar DeRozan suffered go ahead, me.
No, I was going to say Embiid is the one where the Sixers literally walk on eggshells anytime they have to disclose an injury of his, because he gets very upset.
And then the guy like DeRozan, when he was in Toronto, he suffered a groin strain, and they gave you adductor longus tendon. Like they gave you the specific muscle group, special muscle in that muscle group. And we are seeing that a little bit more. Like the soleus strain has become super popular. We're seeing a lot more people reporting that. I think it's just more people are comfortable reporting that. And in years past, it might have just been a calf strain, because that's one of the muscles that make up the calf. But it really is just team policy. I think there is some teams that believe it's a gamesmanship thing. Hey, we want to be as vague as possible for competitive edge kind of thing. And I think it's other teams that are just like, we're going to be as transparent for our fans as we can be. That is relevant. Some teams don't care, and then it just kind of go from there.
Have you noticed that the grade system that for strains and calf strains, et cetera, hamstring strains, do you sense that it's getting longer? Like I saw Evan Mobley with a grade 1 calf strain, I think it was, and they said out 2 to 4 weeks. And I was like, whoa, I thought a grade 1 calf strain was 1 to 2 weeks. And then he did come back sooner than the 4-week timetable. Do you think there's kind of like a reassessment of these time periods because
like airlines? Airlines, it used to be like LA to Phoenix. Oh, that's a 50-minute flight. But then if you say it's a 50-minute flight and it lands like in 55 minutes, everyone's like, oh, the plane's late. So now they call it a 90-minute flight. And then they can say we arrived on time or like ahead of time by 25 minutes or whatever it is.
We talked a little bit about this, Tom, about maybe people being a little bit more cautious with the calf strains given the Achilles issue that we've seen with a couple of those. And you and I worked to kind of debunk that a little bit. But I think really the safety net in terms of reporting that we're seeing right now is not return to play. It will be reevaluated in 2 to 4 weeks. So that leaves some wiggle room for, okay, we're going to reassess. We know it's likely a 4 to 6 week injury, but that leaves the door open for an early return or a pushback of that timeline. We're seeing more and more teams say this guy will be reevaluated in a week versus return to play in a week.
Do you get the sense that we're seeing more guys come off the bench? Star players like Wemby come off the bench. Drew Holiday recently came back coming off the bench. I'm sure it's a long debate among athletic trainers is the upside of having a guy warm up and then start a game versus warm up, sit, and then in mid-game come back out in bench minutes. So where are we at with that? And is there like a prevailing theory out there about how you bring back guys from injury?
I think it really comes down to what is your approach in terms of, do you prefer that approach or do you prefer like a minutes restriction? Do you prefer both? There are ways to ease guys back into things that doesn't necessarily change things. I know we've talked about load management ad nauseum, and I hate those two words together, but like the idea behind load management initially was always that acute to chronic workload and basically trying to avoid spikes in the amount of load placed on the body. And so when you've been off for a long period of time, having a big spike, I think that potentially some of the approaches used is to maybe not make that spike as big. It's a gradual return, whether it's off the bench or a minutes restriction. Are there things you can do to keep a guy warm, like hopping on the bike, the exercise bike in between, the national anthem, the lineups being introduced, start a play to where he's going to enter the game, things like that are going to allow them to maybe not have that drop off, or even something simple like a modality like a hydroculator pad, a heat pad, things like that are going to allow those muscle groups that have been adequately warm to stay warm until they come off. And you're seeing a lot of guys we're seeing more and more guys on the sidelines wearing the hyper ices, which are the hyper ice heat belts. If you ever see a guy with like a black thing around his belt with like a red little light on it, that's generally speaking is it's a heat pack that's easy to turn on and off, Bluetooth controllable. I use them on my athletes. They're portable. They're easy to use. You don't have to pull the thing out of the hydroculator and find the elastic wrap and stuff like that. So there are ways you can keep an athlete. I think it really comes down to personal preference in terms of what the player likes and what the individual medical staff likes and what the plan is moving forward.
Yeah, I think we saw that with Beyond Wembley. We saw LaMelo Ball also come off the bench. Specifically, I think Coach Lee said, because of the minutes restriction, and they figured that was like the easiest way to adhere to it is just not burn him on early minutes where you could probably survive without. Oof.
And the game flows, right? Then you can see, okay, is it a close game and you're at your 20-minute cap? All right, you got to leave versus, hey, we still got 4 or 5 minutes left on your minutes restriction and you can finish out the game. You know what I mean? So,
Jeff, let me ask you a question. I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable situation, so we're going to talk in generalities here. In 2026, is there any excuse for having a bad training staff? Are there staffs out there that are not up to par to what the general kind of this is the general accepted, hey, this is how you do this?
I think there are a lot of varying approaches that are kind of rooted in the same thing. We just take that mentality maybe a little bit differently. You've got staffs that have been together for a long period of time. You've got staffs that have changed hands 3 or 4 times in the last 4 or 5 years. I think for me, that's the big issue in terms of evaluating staffs is their continuity. Because it's really hard for me to because Phoenix was one of the reasons I started the database. I had heard, Aaron Nelson, their Phoenix staff, their staff is great. Their staff is the best. And sure enough, the proof was in the pudding, right? Like those guys not only were great when they were in Phoenix, when they went other places tend to be pretty well as well. Casey Smith had a successful career in Dallas, is now successfully leading New York. But when I started getting into athletic training in general, it was like, hey, if you want to be an NBA athletic trainer, you're basically hoping you get on as an athletic trainer and someone retires or dies because those jobs just don't change hands. And now they change hands very, very. So I think the problem is not that these staffs aren't adequately doing things. It's sometimes they're just not given enough time to adequately implement their programs, their approaches. Right. You know what I mean? I think at this point, everybody's got access to every tool possible. You know what I mean? It's just, are you utilizing those? How big is your staff? Is your staff one athletic trainer, one physical? Is it more, and I think the better teams, the ones that are more successful, understand it's more than just an athletic trainer. It's more than just a physical therapist. It's a massage therapist. It's a nutritionist. It's a dietitian. It's a whole approach to everything that falls under that sports medicine umbrella to provide our guys the best, put them in the best position to be successful. And also understanding sometimes you have a guy that's extremely talented and is inherently going to be more problematic in terms of injuries, like an Amari Stoudemire, right? Like a guy that you knew what you were getting into. And we've got to allocate some things for him now that we have him on the roster, like when he moved from Phoenix to New York or things like that. So incorporate those ideas, it's a very fluid. So I think you try to find some consistency and some approach to all the madness going on.
Speaking of madness, watch Industry season premiere. Don Draper's daughter is in Industry right now, and it really messed me up.
Oh, is that the same universe, Tom? Is Don Draper like from Mad Men? Is his daughter now grown up and now she's in industry? Is that how that works?
Yeah, actually, Industry season 4. It's Don Draper's daughter from Mad Men. You've got Max Minghella from The Social Network. You've got Cal Penn from Harold and Kumar. He's in there.
Isn't there a Stranger Things character?
Kit Harington from Game of Thrones. They're bringing it all together. It's all one shared universe.
So the White Walkers are coming to industry, and
they're investing heavily in OnlyFans.
But then Logan Roy comes in and buys them all out,
Right?
But not before Jesse Paul can sell drugs to
Kieran
them.
Culkin, he was in Home Alone.
Jesse Paul.
Yep, there's that too. I mean, we could go all day on this. And
Speaking of expanded universes, Jeff, I think the last time we had you on, you had not dipped your toes into Andor season 2 yet. So have you finished the Andor saga, and what did you think of Andor?
Finished it, loved it. Y'all were exactly right. You knew I was going to love it. It was a little bit of a slow burn, especially early on, but by the end, you're starting to see the connections between Rogue One and that immediately finished the series finale and put in Rogue One and started going like, I couldn't not do that. And you start to see, okay, the connections and things like that. And that's what you made a story that was completely independent of the Skywalkers and the Skywalker saga, and then bled it into, but without it being completely ignoring, storyline and plot. And like, I followed that up with going to rewatch Obi-Wan, and I was like, this is the inverse of that thing.
It crashing down. You were riding high, and then boom.
And just to see if I had remembered how poorly I remember receiving Obi-Wan. So I loved it. I was sad to see it go, but understood. Like, I mean, it's kind of nice to actually have a beginning and an end and understand. Yeah. Okay, and then we can move on.
Closure. Yeah.
What?
Yep.
Since you watched it after the fact, Amin and I were handcuffed to the release schedule, which was 3 at a time, and I think there are some positive and negatives to that. But how did you watch season 2 Andor? Were you picking up episodes here and there? Were you watching 4 in a row? Were you watching it in little batches?
I feel like I started slow, just kind of one here and there. And then once it kind of got going, I was like, okay, I gotta keep going. And I just kind of binged through it, especially in a universe like Star Wars. It's such an interesting approach, because if you give the time to breathe in between episodes a little bit, you start to get those fan theories and maybe where it's going. And sometimes that takes away because it's not going to live up to what your theory. I mean, I think we've seen this with a lot of shows that have that model, the Game of Thrones, Stranger Things, whatever the case may be. But there's something to be able to binge it. And there's also something that where you do kind of get to have conversations with your buddies that enjoy Star Wars and where's this going that, maybe you didn't have. So since I binged it and didn't have anybody to talk to at the time, I kind of approached that. But if I had been in that conversation with you guys from the get-go, I think I would have been okay with a little bit of a slower, more patient approach.
Where does it stack up for you, man?
I mean, the original trilogy movie-wise is always going to be here for me in terms of that. As far as the extra stuff coming off of that trilogy, it's right. I mean, I kind of put it with Rogue One. I don't really think you can separate the two. It's hard to, and I loved Rogue One. My son and I are working our way through all the animated stuff now, and that's fun. I almost kind of put Mandalorian and that whole kind of stuff off to the side a little bit. I do like that just because I like the Mandalore. You guys know I got shoot my Boba Fett helmet sitting right here. But it's top 5. I mean, probably for properties. You know what I mean? I enjoyed The Acolyte to an extent. You know what I mean? That's another thing we didn't get. I was kind of disappointed that I felt like it was finally finding its ground, and then they opted to go away from it. So
we talked about this when it came out. Is they played too cute, stringing it out. And then it landed the plane, but by the time the plane landed, it's like, this show's canceled. Because I think if they had paid off some more stuff earlier, as opposed to drawing it out the way they did, which is kind of how I felt about Ahsoka. They drew it out way too long. I'm like, no, get to the good stuff, and now we can set up cliffhangers at the end. But They spent too much time kind of just like trying to be mysterious. I do want to ask you though, one episode seems to be more polarizing about Andor season 2 than any other. And it is the episode where Cassian is crash landed on this planet, or not crash landed, he's on the planet to rendezvous with someone he doesn't know, and he gets captured by the Maya Pei. And we find out at the end that this is Yavin 4.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy that episode?
It took away from everything. Like I thought it was kind of a break in the flow of the story. That's why I told you it was a little choppy for me trying to figure out what was going on. I like the idea of it's a little bit of a bottleneck episode for me. Took away from the storyline and things like that. And it was weird contrasting that with everything going back, in the Republic and in the Senate and things like that. And you just like didn't really know how and then it didn't go anywhere other than, okay, by the way, it was Yavin 4. You know what I mean? Like,
I liked it. I liked it a lot. I liked it a lot because we find out the reveal at the end is like, oh shit, that's the planet. That's how they found Yavin 4, whatever. But I also liked it because it showcased, not everyone in the rebellion is like brave and courageous and smart. They had dumbasses too. And I love the idea that just these dumbasses are in the woods shooting at each other, not know what the hell they're doing. I thought it gave it kind of a dose of realism in the same way that like Cyril and the bureaucracy of the Empire was like, this is how a lot of this shit goes, man. It's not just like, I'm evil and I will destroy everything. It's this people doing things. Well, this is what you haven't filed the F-54 form and da-da-da. And like, and that kind of obsession driving Cyril to like chase down Cassian. And you get that last scene on Gorman where he says this whole big speech and Cassian's like,
who are you?
He has no idea who he is.
Yeah.
What?
And that was one of those, like, I didn't know where it was going to go. And then like, I loved that payoff. You know what I mean? Like it seemed like it had just dragged on. I was like, okay, I just don't know how they're going to land the plane with this storyline. And then it was like, oh, that was really well done. Yeah. So for sure. Some of the properties I wish would just be a movie rather than a show and a multi-episode thing. I think you cut down some of that. Like Ahsoka, if Ahsoka had been a movie, which is why I'm intrigued by the new Mandalorian Grogu movie coming out, is like, maybe that won't be, it'll be more direct, kind of what we were talking about.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Tom Cruise hopping on the set of Starfighter and, shooting the lightsaber duel? Because Sean Levy just has an open set policy where you famous, come on down, baby. Come on. Direct my movie. I don't care.
I'm so excited for that movie. Like, I'm trying not to let that take away. If they're all running Cruise style with the lightsabers, maybe that would be kind of what we're looking for. You need more running. So that'll be a better payoff if we can get something like that.
Yeah, it's Starfighter and Mandalorian and Grogu are both being produced, and we're going to actually see those. Those are the confirmed movies, so that's what we have to look forward to. Yeah, Acolyte was a bummer. It felt like it got noted to death for me. Yeah. And then they canceled it. So, that's their final note is goodbye. But yeah, Andor, I mean, watching Rogue One after Andor made me feel like, wow, what if Tony got to actually make Rogue One from the beginning instead of being brought in halfway? Like, you could see how, how shallow it is compared to the depth of what Andor provided. And it kind of made me wonder, like, obviously he's done with it. He's done with it. He's done his time, but it would be cool to see if he had do more.
It also goes back to kind of like, is like, we like politics, Star Wars. Is that like a moneymaker? I don't know.
It's not.
I think it might have been a better movie and it would have been less successful, perhaps, because people want to see lightsabers. That's the end of it. People are like, where are the lightsabers at?
Except for Tom.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just waiting, just waiting for the perfect time. I'm waiting for all of the films and shows to come out.
Yeah.
When it's finally done, then I will watch. Yeah. Is that in the near future?
Have your kids not watched Star Wars? Are you depriving your children?
it's I'm not going to get into this, but it's my girls are into like Barbies and Taylor Swift. And on the occasion that the boys come over and hang out, yes, Star Wars comes up more often.
Okay.
But yeah.
So it's not your fault, is what you're saying.
We forgive you.
I just blame my daughters. That's really what it is. Even though I grew up with brothers, this has nothing to do with that. Okay. Yeah. What else, Jeff?
Man, I think that's everything I usually sign up for, right? Is basketball talk, conspiracy talk, and then some Star Wars talk. We've hit the big three.
Top Chef coming in the spring. Yeah.
There you go.
Yes. All right. Well, I'm going to go watch some movies, and you guys can recommend which ones I watch in order and what time, and which TV shows that I should watch.
When it's finally completed and when Tom starts, where would you have him start?
Oh, I always say start with the original trilogy, especially for kids, so you can still get that like Vader reveal. You know what I mean? Like
what Vader reveal?
Exactly.
See, this is the weird thing.
Father,
like in
right?
Tommy Boy, I laugh at Luke. Luke, I am your father. Lola. I thought that was funny. Spaceballs, thought that was funny. I come to learn that those were riffs on Star Wars.
Dude, you watching Spaceballs without ever knowing that this is just a big bad. Star Wars part is insane.
It's so crazy.
Should we just end it with May the Schwartz be with you?
It's so good. It's so good. Jeff Stotts from InStreetClothes.com. Go follow him, InStreetClothes, on Twitter. And you can find him at rotowire.com. Thank you so much, man. I know we hit you with a lot of the conspiracy 49ers thing, and you did a great job. Great job bouncing off those electromagnetic fields.
I appreciate it.